This is the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation in Freetown. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to News Hour. My name is Mahawa Aliyu and thank you very much for joining us. Coming up in this afternoon's edition of the news, Minister of Finance Jacob Jusu-Safa says government's agriculture policy is to increase food production. Minister of Tourism and Cultural Affairs called on hotel owners to use 25% of Sierra Leonean product in their businesses. And the world celebrates late Mandela's 100th birthday. All these stories and more, including business and sport news, coming up in this afternoon's edition of News Hour. Stay with us. For our first story this afternoon, so that the world is celebrating the 100 years birthday anniversary of a revolutionary icon, Nelson Mandela. Mr. Mandela came to the limelight when he joined the African National Congress in 1944 and helped from the ANC Youth League, ANCYL. The first South African president died in 2014. And Marigwe has been looking at the life of Mandela and filed in this report, read in our studios by Doreen Barry.
As a young and dynamic leader who was radical about the change at that time, Mandela rose through the ranks of the ANCYL, and through his effort, the ANC adopted a more radical mass-based policy in 1949. Mandela, alongside other campaigners, were actively involved in activism for a change of the apartheid system in a white-dominated society at that time. He and cohorts were arrested for the first time in 1952 and were charged under the Suppression of Communism Act and sentenced to 9 months of hard labor, suspended for 2 years. Because of the harsh treatment meted against them in prison, Mandela underwent prostate surgery in November 1985 and was also diagnosed with tuberculosis in 1988. Ailments such as these could not deter him from speaking against the apartheid government. He was released from prison in February 1990, 9 days after the unbanning of the ANC and the PSC, and nearly 4 months after the release of his remaining comrades. Throughout his imprisonment, Mandela rejected at least 3 conditional offers of release. Madiba, after his detention, engaged in official talks to end white minority rule and was elected ANC president in 1991. In 1993, he and President F.W. de Klerk jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize, and on the 27th April 1994, he voted for the first time in his life. As a radical who was yearning for change at all costs, even if it cost him his life, even after serving his life sentence, Mandela returned home feeling determined more than ever to emancipate his people from white supremacy rule. For this and so many other admirable characters exhibited by the revolutionary icon, the world today celebrates him, even in death, for his exemplary style of leadership. Although some schools of thought still wonder at the type of individual he was, though he united South Africans, he was unable to unite his home. We join the world to say happy birthday, Madiba, and may the world continue to emulate your good examples.
Well, many thanks then indeed to Anne-Marie Gibai for putting that report together. Well, after his death, the former U.S. President Barack Obama has launched the Yali Mandela Fellowship for Young Africans. The fellowship for the past years has now given opportunity to young African entrepreneurs to become entrepreneurs and innovators. Abdurrahman Kowa is a fellow of the Mandela Fellowship and joins us live on Newshour. Good afternoon, Mr. Kowa, and warm welcome to the program.
Good afternoon.
So tell us, how has the fellowship shaped young Sierra Leoneans or Africans in general?
Well, the fellowship was about investing in the next generation of young African leaders, and Sierra Leone being part of the African countries. We have about 34 of the young Sierra Leoneans who have benefited from specifically Mandela Washington Fellowship. And we also have about over 200 of Sierra Leoneans who have benefited from the regional leadership centers. So the leadership shape, the program shaped the leadership ideas of young people in Sierra Leone so that they can be able to contribute to the democratic process of the different countries where they are, spur economic growth, and contribute to enhance peace and security in Africa. So when young leaders are taken to those centers, to the regional leadership centers in Accra, Ghana, in Lagos, Nigeria, in South Africa, and as well as in Dakar, Senegal, and those who can also make it up to the United States for 6 weeks, they are taught about leadership, servant leadership. They are taught about what you can do as a leader in your community to make sure that the problems in your community are solved. So those are the things. So we have 3 tracks in the leadership program. You have those that will be placed in the public management track, where they will teach you about what you can do to benefit the public. And those in the civic leadership can be taught about what you can do in your community, either as a volunteer or somebody working for non-governmental organization, so that you can be able to contribute in your own little way to your community. You also have the entrepreneurship track, where people are taught about translating their ideas into real business, how you can come back to Africa and help with the economic growth of Africa.
Yes, and the whole, Abdurrahman, what does this mean, you see, for young Africans?
It means a whole lot, because in the past we've not been seeing this kind of a revolution. We call it a revolution, where young people are taken somewhere for a period of time and trained to become leaders. Now I can tell you, out of 1,000 young people that we are taking to the United States last year, about 40% of that number now own their own businesses. They now run their own organization. They are now CEOs, they are now managers in their public sector institutions. So they are creating that kind of impact which Africa needs today.
So how did Mandela's life influence young Africans?
Well, the program itself, the Young African Leadership program itself, was actually coined from the leadership character of Nelson Mandela. And that is why now one of the flagship programs, the Mandela Washington Fellowship, was named after him, so that young people in Africa can be taught about selflessness. They can be taught about what they can do to build peace. They can be taught about integrity. They can be taught about honesty. They can be taught about public accountability. These were all the good things Mandela was able to teach Africans, that I am teaching you this. So when I'm away, I want you guys to emulate all of these good things. So we saw that leadership character in Mandela. So that is why the program was actually named, one of the flagship programs was actually named after him, so that young leaders will emulate those good characters, so that will come back to their communities where they are and be able to implement those good characters Mandela was able to display while he was alive.
All right, thank you very much, Abdurrahman Kowa. We're still talking about the celebration of the late Mandela's 100th birthday. Well, we want to look at how should Africans celebrate Nelson Mandela's 100th celebration. Well, we also have in the studios Alhaji Dr. Njai, a Pan-Africanist. You're welcome to News Hour.
Thank you very much for having me.
So tell us, what does Mandela mean to Africa?
Nelson Mandela is a towering figure for Africa. He means a lot. Nelson Mandela, 1992, it takes me back. I was very young, and he was released from prison in South Africa. Nelson Mandela took 27 years of his active life he sacrificed it for the freedom of his people. And he did it also in a more remarkable way, because Nelson Mandela displayed what a true servant leader is, a man who was ready to sacrifice his life. Back in 1960, at the Rivonia trial, when Nelson Mandela was being sentenced to prison, he said this statement. The judge, and his final speech, the judge asked him to give his final statement when he was being sentenced to prison in 1960 or 61. And he said, at the last statement of his Rivonia trial speech, he said, I am willing, if for anything, I am willing to die. I am willing to die. And that means that he was actually willing to die in prison for his people. And on countless occasions, Mandela was approached. Can you stop? Can you get up? Can we incentivize you? He said, no, my freedom is linked to the freedom of my people. Now, Mandela gets out of prison. He becomes the president of South Africa. Mandela could do anything as the president of South Africa. He could have stayed on and stayed on forever because of all he did. But Mandela said, I'm going to rule for 4 years and then leave. So Mandela in himself, in his embodiment, in his speech, and in his everything he did, has a lot for us across Africa. One, we are in this day and age right now of where politicians stay in power. They don't want to leave. There is the elements of corruption. And
that actually brings me to the next question of
yes.
Have African leaders live up to the expectation of late South African president?
Not so. You have few Pan-African leaders who came right in the shoes of Mandela. People like Thomas Sankara, people like Amilcar Cabral, Kwame Nkrumah, and others. But recently, what we've had is just a high level of mediocrity, and that persistent leadership failure continues to haunt us in Africa. And Mandela, if Mandela were alive today, and even seeing his own country, South Africa, Zuma, what Zuma did in South Africa, and he must be turning around in his grave and seeing that that's not the trajectory he expected South Africa to go. But Mandela was a visionary, because for one, his movement, the ANC, and what they did was very, very collective. It's collective in the sense of it had all aspects of race, black, white, and everybody was involved. Women were involved. You have people like Winnie Mandela, you had Albertine Sisulu, many others, and you had of all ages. And so that in a sense was very collective, and that lesson is important for us in Africa, because what Mandela teaches us is hope, that we should keep fighting, we should keep building, we should keep raising our voices, and we should keep resisting, because you as an individual can be the agent of change. And that's the fundamental aspect that we should remember Mandela in everything we do, because each and every one of us are an agent of change in our societies, in our communities, in our households. And Mandela, exemplifies that.
Again, though, the things that Mandela stood for, many say have eroded in Africa, as present.
It does. And I think one of the challenges we still have in Africa is that we have two things working against us. We have lost the belief, and we have no doubt. We've lost the doubt. We are doubting ourselves and the ability of doing things and transforming our societies. But also, I think the aspect of corruption and leadership and material ones are actually taking over things like positive and progressive and sustainable changes in our communities, where leaders actually sacrifice material needs, where leaders then actually focus on transforming lives of their communities, of people in their societies. A typical example we are seeing, like right here in Sierra Leone right now, we're having a petroleum increase in prices, and we are having one of the most difficult economic situations. We need to have leadership that responds to the needs of people, leadership that actually understands that I need to sacrifice, but about serving people is about being a servant leader. It's not about me as the leader, it's about the people. Thank
you very much for joining us on News Hour. Well, he is Alhaji Dr. Njai, a Pan-Africanist, talking there about the 100th birthday celebration of late President Nelson Mandela of South Africa. While you're watching News Hour on the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation here in Freetown, we continue with more stories making news this afternoon. The Minister of Finance has said the overall goal of their policy on agriculture is to increase food production in the country, with special emphasis on rice to feed the growing population as well as provide employment. Jacob Jesus Safa was speaking at a two-day consultative forum on the Islamic Development Bank Regional Vice Value and Chain Development Program in Sierra Leone. Well, Mariam Asuma was there, and he now reports.
Today, rice is grown in 40 out of 54 countries in Africa and provides income for more than 35 million smallholder farmers in the continent. In Sierra Leone, there is a growing demand for rice, the country's staple food. However, the country is not growing enough to meet the growing demand due to low public and private investment, lack of technology, and poor developed value chain. It is against this background that the Ministries of Finance, Agriculture and the Islamic Development Bank are discussing ways of improving sustainable rice production and food self-sufficiency that can meet the demands of Sierra Leoneans. Over 80% of the country's population depends on rice as a top priority in the food self-sufficiency drive, but the lack of equipment and seedlings are considered factors responsible for the low-quality production of rice in Sierra Leone. A representative from the Islamic Development Bank, Noor Abdi, said that last year alone, more than 10 countries approached the Islamic Development Bank for assistance to increase rice production and productivity. He added that they have plans to prepare and approve a 2-year program spanning from 2018 to 2019 with a total of $300 million in partnership with the African Development Bank and the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa. The Minister of Finance, Jacob Jesus Safa, whilst launching the project, said under the new direction, agriculture is a priority and it will receive the utmost attention needed to achieve national food self-sufficiency. He added that as a beneficiary country, government will give the first phase of the rice production project the attention needed for it to succeed.
The purpose of the workshop is to brainstorm and to discuss with key stakeholders on the design of the project. There's a plan project on the value chain for rice. So we have to consult with different stakeholders, and they are doing it in the context of the workshop. The effort of today is good to see the government spending a lot of money. Nearly $200 million is spent on rice import. That's quite substantial. It's over 30% of our import goods. So when we do not spend on rice, we do not spend foreign exchange, it keeps our reserves right up there.
Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Food Security, Joseph Ndanema, said that neighboring countries like Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are known for cocoa, Liberia for rubber, and Gambia for groundnuts, whereas Sierra Leone is only known for the wrong reasons. He pledged his government's willingness to rebrand the image of the country.
For information, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, increased investment in rice production, processing and marketing is one of the priority areas with the goal to make Sierra Leone rice self-sufficient and not only self-sufficient to make rice the commercial commodity that will earn the country much needed foreign exchange. Under this theme, we hope to revamp the rice production unit in the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, hope to develop and operationalize National Irrigation Master Plan, increase investment to improve on the utilization of arable lands, IBS, Moli lands, etc., new rice varieties developed, rice processing, packaging, and marketing outfits further developed.
Presentations on rice development plan, challenges and opportunities were the major discussions at this forum. SLBC News, Mariam Asuma reporting.
Given the recent increase of leaked government information on social media, the Deputy Inspector General of Police and the senior public servant have highlighted the penalties and implications of information leaking. Organized at the Civil Service Training College, the rationale of the seminar was to remind civil servants and the public where the line must be drawn when sharing information. Harold Williams has the story.
Social media has placed the access of information at the fingertips of everyone who can use a computer or a personal handheld device such as a mobile phone. Sharing of information is thus very easy in this modern age. At the Civil Service Training College, the source of such information was the topic of discussion among public servants, civil servants, staff of the college, and the Deputy Inspector General of Police. Dr. Victor Masakwe, who provided a theoretical and policy perspective on the management of multiple communications, said the civil service must define and assign relevance to information before passing it on to the general public. With regards to leakages of documents, Dr. Masakwe attributed the motivations to factors outside the scope of governance, including political motivations, personal motivations, or simple ignorance. Civil servants, he said, must question the source and content of information and provided discussion on ways to prevent or manage leaked information.
The government can act as recommended below. Now, here are 4 recommendations that will open up for discussion later on. Number 1, conduct massive nationwide engagement on information sharing laws and policies and the consequences of same is violated. Number 2, develop and popularize stringent communication and information sharing policies. Number 3, identify and recruit in-office whistleblowers. Create, like I said earlier, awareness, training, and then execute sober procedures, and then train people on technology. That will help.
Providing the law enforcement perspective on the leakage of official government documents, Deputy Inspector General of Police Dr. Alshek Kamara said the Cyber Crimes Unit is now capable of tracing slanderous, misleading, pornographic, and other offensive material released especially to social media. The right of access to information as enshrined by the law only protects whistleblowers who have obtained their information through a due process. He said the codes of the civil service clearly define the obligations of government workers to respect government documents and not to jeopardize the peace or state security without cross-checking. Mr. Mohammed Taylor, Registrar of the Civil Service Training College, urged civil servants to read the Civil Service Code, formerly known as the General Orders, where the classification of documents is clearly spelled out. The final admonition was given by Dr. Sanfa Pius Kagbo, the training coordinator of the Civil Service Training College, who urged everyone to check their phones constructively. The Civil Service Training College, located at State Avenue, is in a primary position to make the issue of government information leakage alarmingly clear for civil servants appointed by the Public Service Commission and all public servants of the Human Resource Management Office as the accredited institution of instruction for government workers.
Now, the Minister of Tourism and Cultural Affairs has called stakeholders within the hospitality industry to have 25% made in salon product and services within their various businesses. Memunatu Pratt was addressing hotel owners on the adherence to the local content policy and the promotion of made in salon products during Barry reports.
Hospitality industry was a call to adhere to the local content policy as it aims to promote made-in-salon products. The local content policy, if well implemented, will not only showcase the country's culture, but will create jobs for more Sierra Leoneans. Hotels are expected to use made-in-salon furniture like window curtains, sell Sierra Leonean food, and screening of local movies in hotel rooms. The Minister of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, Memunatu Pratt, said the meeting was the beginning of the rebranding process of the hotel industry. She informed them about President Bio's vision in rebranding the tourism sector, adding that the local content policy will help boost the tourism sector. She described tourism as the bedrock of the country's economy, citing China, Egypt and Morocco as some countries that have used tourism to boost their economies.
We are trying to rebrand Sierra Leone. We all heard the message from His Excellency in no uncertain terms. He made it quite clear that tourism is going to be one of his core areas.
She called on the hospitality sector to comply with the local content policy by ensuring they have 25% made in salon products in their business. Acting General Manager, National Tourist Board, Fatmata Agbi Osagi, said the practice of 25% of made-in-salon products is expected to be implemented in the area of employment, furniture and food. She called on the hospitality sector to implement the local content policy for an improved economic growth. The Director of Tourism, Mohamed Jallo, spoke about efforts made by the ministry to ensure an improved touristic environment for an increased economic growth. He described the hospitality sector as one of the drivers of the economy. President Hotels Association called on the government to create the enabling environment to enable them meet the demand. Speaking about the local content policy, Director Local Content Policy, Emmanuel Conjo, said the policy calls on the hospitality sector to ensure 25% made in salon products and services with special focus on employment and training, procurement of goods and services. He said a survey has shown that the hospitality industry is failing to adhere to the local content policy. Deputy Minister of Trade, Reverend Abraham Cisse Jones, called for an enabling environment for businesses to thrive.
Now, the first National Human Development Report has stated that 53% of Sierra Leoneans are poor and 16% extremely poor. This was disclosed during a validation session by government and the United Nations Development Programme organized by the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. The session was held on the theme Building Resilience for Sustainable Development at the National Authorizing Office, Tahil, for Civil Societies of the Western Area Rural. Aruna Patrick Kamara files in this report.
The report covers food security, the environment and disaster management, governance, peace, security and justice, attitude, behavior and culture, and corruption. According to the Deputy Development Secretary, Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, Mariatu Brown, their ministry will focus more on planning, monitoring of projects for the development of the country. She said the validation exercise is a positive move as it will guide them on their target as a ministry. She noted that the first report was done in 1996, followed by a second one in 1998 and a third in 2007, which captured many issues to guide the government by then in order to ensure good governance for the development of the country. The United Nations Resident Coordinator and UNDP Resident Representative in Sierra Leone, Sunil Sagal, said the Human Development Approach concept was championed by UNDP globally in 1990. He said the human development is about expanding the richness of human life rather than simply the growth of the economy in which people live. He said human development focuses on people, opportunities and choices, which are fundamental dimensions for the enhancement of human capability to be able to live in a healthy life as well as be knowledgeable and to have a decent standard of living. Mr. Sagal noted in Sierra Leone the National Development Reports have generally taken their themes from the current development challenges. He said earlier reports have therefore focused on poverty eradication, transition from conflict to human security, and decentralization of governance. He noted that UNDP is pleased to support the government on the fourth report in preparing building resilience for sustainable development, directly from the development challenges Sierra Leone has experienced in the most recent years, and examines how the country can gradually recover. Presenting the report, Building Resilience for Sustainable Development, the consultant, Dr. Fred Hassan Conte, said the report was done with the support of Statistics Sierra Leone Data and other partners. He said the health infrastructure is very weak and accessing free health care facilities in rural areas is a big challenge. Dr. Conte said none of the targets for eradicating extreme poverty in the Millennium Development Goals were met. He said according to the report, 53% of Sierra Leoneans are poor and 16% are extremely poor. He said in building the economy, the country should pursue sound microeconomic and sectorial policy and measures and intensify efforts to build the economy. They call on the government to provide youth with opportunity for personal self-growth and skill enhancement.
You're watching News on the SLBC in Freetown when it's time for the latest in business, and Wilmina Boku is all set.
Hello and welcome to Business Updates with me, Wilmina Buku. From the business desk, popular artist Emerson Bokari has been officially unveiled as brand ambassador of AfriCell Mobile Company. The chief executive officer and founder for Sugar Entertainment signed the agreement in Freetown. We'll have more on this in a subsequent news. The Financial Sector Deepening Africa has launched the Data Management and Analytics Capabilities Program in Sierra Leone. The Data Management and Analytics Capabilities is a financial inclusion program working with the financial service providers in sub-Saharan Africa to use data-driven evidence to design inclusive and affordable financial products. The Country Director of Financial Sector Deepening Africa, Joe Abbas Bangura, explained the importance of Financial Sector Deepening Africa to SLBC.
The project that was launched today was launched in consonance with the Central Bank, Bank of Sierra Leone, and the FSD Africa. It's called Data Management and Analytics Capability. It may be a bit tongue-twisting, but all this represents is helping our financial service providers in the country, which include banks, MNOs, the mobile phone operators who are providing financial services, and financial technology, fintech providers. operators. So to be able to use data that they're already generating, whether through people's use of mobile phone, through their use of mobile money, through their bank accounts that people have, to be able to pull them together and design products, banking services products in the country that would be able to meet the needs of Sierra Leoneans, particularly the fact that we know 80% of Sierra Leoneans do not have access to formal financial services. 80%. That's a huge number of Sierra Leoneans. And again, with the Bank of Sierra Leone, what they've been doing in the National Financial Inclusion Strategy is to reduce that number. So a year ago it was 87%. So we've hit 87% out of that number to bring it down to 80%. And so 7% more people are now included. To grow this economy, we'd have to expand the economy beyond the ones who now have access to formal financial services. They're only 20%. We're already told the spending power of those who are excluded is 5 times the spending power of the household who are included. So to broaden growth, to broaden whether it's the GDP, whatever we need to do to improve this economy, we have to work on making sure we expand financial services beyond the borders, beyond the 20% framework that we have now, and to be able to make sure much more Sierra Leoneans are able to access.
Well, that's all coming to you from the business desk in Freetown. We have been Wilmina Buku. Thanks for watching. We now go over for the rest of News Hour.
Many thanks indeed to Wilmina Buku for the latest in business. Well, we continue with more stories making news this afternoon. World Savants from Holland, in partnership with Country 3 Foundation, has begun constructing a 9-classroom block in Lumsal, Marampa Chiefdom, Port Loko District. A representative of the team, Johan Hidnipman, said they were happy to work for the people and build more schools in the country and promote education. Joseph Toure filed in this report.
This is how the team was welcomed, as this is a dream come true for them. The managing director, Country 3 Foundation, Joan Kamara, said World Servant Organization has built many schools in various parts of the country. She called on the community members to embrace the group and must not do anything that will discourage them. Madam Kamara encouraged the group to learn the culture and language of the locals.
I know what it means, traveling all the way, coming to a foreign land, a place that you've never been before, and today you are here. You are not only here to relax and enjoy yourself, but you are here to work, to do the construction work yourself. Can you imagine the servant role that you are playing?
A member of the group, Johan Hennipman, informed his audience that they have been looking forward to being in the country to promote education. He stressed that there will be more schools as long as they have funds.
Building a basic school, and we really hope that the children will come and they will learn, and that in that way the economy of Sierra Leone and happiness will return, or will be as it is.
A representative of the community lauded the group for its gesture and called on the other members of the community to give their full support to the work.
This is news on the SLBC in Freetown. It's time for the latest in sport, and Mariam Asuma is all set.
Good afternoon and welcome to Sport Update on Newshour this afternoon. I am Mariam Asuma. President Julius Maada Bio's motivated Sierra Leone national football team, Leone Star. The president visited one of their training sessions at the Sierra Leone Football Association Academy in Kintom. This is in preparation of the friendly encounter between Leone Stars of Sierra Leone and Lone Stars of Liberia, scheduled for the 22nd July in Monrovia. Our Mosera went along on our report.
Officials from the Ministry of Sports, players, technical officials and members of the football family were in attendance during the meeting with President Julius Maada Bio when addressing players. The Minister of Sports, Ibrahim Yelenke, led the President and his officials to the players in the field, where he presented them to the President, who in turn thanked and appreciated the efforts of the team. According to him, the players are ambassadors of Sierra Leone and must be treated as such. He reaffirmed that much is expected of the players in Liberia, as he is the sole pioneer of this friendly encounter.
I thought the weather would have been favorable for me to train with you, but notwithstanding, I am happy to speak one-on-one with you. I have challenged George Weah that my team will defeat his, and I know we have huge potential in Sierra Leone. All you need is the support and attention, which I will assure that it will soon come to the spotlight.
He called on the membership of the Football Association to try and settle the wrangling for the betterment of the game, which he emphasized they would like to resurrect. The head coach of Leone Stars, John Kister, was overwhelmed by the president's stride in motivating the players and promised to perform well in Liberia.
On behalf of the players, on behalf of the Ministry of Sport, the SLFA, we want to say a big thank you for taking time out and coming to us this morning as part of our motivation in going forward football. On that note, I just want to say thank you very much, and hopefully this is the beginning and the turning point of us going forward as a nation.
One of the senior players of Leone Stars, Jubila Ubi, also thanked President Bio, as this is the first time the country's president is witnessing a training ahead of an international match. SABC TV News are in Freetown. Hawa Mosiri reporting.
Director of Sports Ibrahim Bangura has in an interview said much has been achieved within 100 days as the Ministry of Sport. He made this during an interview with Esther Marie Samura in his office at Bishop House in Freetown.
You have to look at the then and the now. And the now is the new direction. What does that mean? The Athletics Association, for the first time, participated in the ECOWAS game in Ghana, and they won 7 medals. But what we need to take into consideration with that is, one, they used to travel by road to different West African countries, but this time they have to board a flight and travel all the way to Aminakra and participated in that event. So if we're talking about now, what has happened, what development has taken place, we boarded 25-man delegation from Sierra Leone to Aminakra, and Sierra Leone represented and participated and then won 7 medals, which is an achievement. We also supported now, for the first time again, the Wrestling Federation. They also traveled by air, they participated in Niamey, in Niger, and they qualified for the gold. And also, for the first time, university sport. You and I know that the then government banned school sport, and now it has been lifted. And the pool of our athletes are from the universities and the schools. What does that tell you? It tells you that this government believes in youth development. This government believes in change, and therefore we are making the change expeditiously.
Well, that's it for Sports Update on Newsa this afternoon. I am Maria Masuma. Thanks for watching. Continue to stay with us for the rest of the bulletin. Over to you, Mahawa Aliyu.
Many thanks indeed to Maria Masuma for the latest in sport. I'm afraid that's all we have time for in this afternoon's edition of Newsa. To end the news, a quick reminder of the top stories. Minister of Finance, Jacob Jusu-Safa, has said government's agricultural policy is to increase food production. Minister of Tourism and Cultural Affairs has called on hotel owners to use 25% of Sierra Leonean product in their businesses. And the world is today celebrating the late Mandela's 100th birthday. Well, that's all in this edition of the news. On behalf of my news editor, Asmi Yuba, my name is Mahawa Aliyu. For more about our programs, do send us your comments to slbc.sl. Thanks for watching the news and good afternoon.